From the heyday of the Fab Four to his own stellar solo career, Paul McCartney has had his hand in some of the greatest songs ever written, and some of the darkest too. The first track on the 1966 Beatles album Revolver concerns Eleanor Rigby, a lonely woman who engages in such painfully solo activities as cleaning up a church, as well as Father Mackenzie, a pastor who writes undelivered sermons and mends his socks late at night. Eventually, the two meet when Father Mackenzie presides over Eleanor Rigby's burial.
Eleanor Rigby died in the church and was buried along with her name.
Paul McCartney wrote a sizable part of Eleanor Rigby, with most of the inspiration coming from an older woman he had befriended when he was a child living in a low-income housing complex.
I don't know, maybe the loneliness made me sort of empathize with him, but I thought it was a great character.
Lennon did contribute to the lyrics as well. This was still when the Lennon-McCartney songwriting credit actually meant that both did indeed work on the song. For the titular character's name, McCartney got Eleanor from Help co-star Eleanor Braun, while he saw the word Rigby on a storefront in Bristol. It was only later that McCartney learned that right over the road from the church hall in which he'd first met Lennon, the graveyard contains a tombstone marking the burial spot of a real Eleanor Rigby. As for Father Mackenzie, well, when Paul initially wrote the line, he used the name McCartney, as in his own last name. He then realized that people would think he was referring to his own dear old dad instead of just a three-syllable name that fit the beat. He did what any good 60s writer would do, then grabbed a phone book and searched for names that fit. And that's how we got Father Mackenzie. While it's officially a Beatles song and co-credited to John Lennon due to a music publishing agreement, Blackbird is very much a Paul McCartney solo joint.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
The song is a standout for its simplicity and quietness on the Beatles' often loud, freewheeling, and experimental self-titled 1968 double LP, which is what you and everyone else know as the White Album. Gentle but a little haunting, McCartney sings a song about a blackbird unable to fly while yearning to do so.
You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
McCartney's actual inspiration isn't that hard to figure out, even today.
I'd heard about the civil rights troubles that were happening in the 60s in Alabama, Mississippi, Little Rock in particular.
Here, McCartney was referring to the Little Rock Nine, black students in 1957 who became the first people of color to enroll at whites-only Little Rock Central High School after the end of school segregation in the United States. They faced heavy opposition, violence, and intimidation, and the Arkansas government tried to get the National Guard to prevent them from entering the school. By his own account, McCartney wrote Blackbird to try and reach those oppressed people.
Now's your time to arise, you know, set yourself free, and take these broken wings.
Paul McCartney's track Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown is the full title that no one ever says aloud, so yay me. Anyway, it was released on the 1965 album Rubber Soul, and yeah, I said McCartney track, more on that in a sec. Norwegian Wood sounds like a very old folk tune or sea shanty, although it also benefits from the addition of a sitar. This was one of the first times the Asian instrument appeared on a Western rock song, in fact, as played by, you guessed it, George Harrison. The rest of the track was written mostly by John Lennon, but here's why we're giving Paul more credit than he usually gets. McCartney helped come up with the concept and compose significant portions of the song. To begin with, Lennon wrote that first innuendo-laced line.
I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me.
McCartney took it from there, later suggesting that the song was about a tryst that takes place in the mid-1960s, when cheap wood furnishings were a big fad. In the book Paul McCartney, many years from now, he explained, "A lot of people were decorating their places in wood, Norwegian wood. It was pine really, cheap pine. So it was a little parody really on those kind of girls who, when you'd go to their flats, there would be a lot of Norwegian wood." It was also McCartney's idea to give the song a violent twist. He added, "So she makes him sleep in the bath, and then finally in the last verse I had this idea to set the Norwegian wood on fire as revenge, so we did it very tongue-in-cheek." In Lennon's last published interview, the comprehensive 1980 Playboy interview, he called Norwegian Wood my song completely. Maybe the concept, but not the finished song. On Abbey Road, Paul contributed a sing-song tune that sounds more at place on a vaudeville stage than it does on a legendary rock album, but a close listen proves it's just as provocative, if not more so, than any of the other progressive rock classics of the same era. Maxwell's Silver Hammer concerns the exploits of Maxwell Edison, whom, as you may recall, was majoring in medicine and in succession bludgeons to death a classmate, a teacher, and the judge presiding over his trial.
Bang, bang, Maxwell Silver.
A song that glibly and gleefully runs through multiple violent murders is superficially dark enough, but the emotional truth of Maxwell's Silver Hammer is somehow even bleaker. In the Beatles anthology, McCartney explained, "Some of my songs are based on personal experience, but my style is to veil it. The song epitomizes the downfalls of life. Just when everything is going smoothly, bang, bang, down comes Maxwell's Silver Hammer and ruins everything." The Beatles' best-known song that details a day in someone's life is, well, A Day in the Life from Sgt. Pepper's. But another track on that same album starts out the same way.
Stepping outside, she is free.
She's Leaving Home begins with a third-person account of a young woman's morning activities, except this time the events in question are anything but mundane. The story follows its protagonist as she runs away from home, to the confusion and heartbreak of her family. At age 17, Melanie Coe, a regular in London's rock and dance club scene at the time, ran away from home after learning she was pregnant. It was 3 weeks before she was located and returned home. Speaking to The Guardian decades later, Coe herself explained, "I think my dad called up the newspapers. My picture was on the front pages." Paul McCartney revealed more about his inspiration for She's Leaving Home in 1000 UK #1 hits. He said, "We'd seen that story and it was my inspiration. There was a lot of these at the time and that was enough to give us the storyline." McCartney pulled straight from the headline, starting the song with the protagonist quietly leaving home in the early morning after writing a goodbye note, just like Coe. He added, "It was rather poignant." And get this, that dancing girl we showed you earlier, that was the Melanie Coe. She won a lip-syncing contest judged by, that's right, Paul McCartney. Another Day was the very first single bearing Paul McCartney's name after the contentious breakup of the Beatles. Unlike the chirpy, sunny compositions he brought to his old band, Another Day was the spiritual successor of his earlier outlier, Eleanor Rigby. This too was about an overlooked woman going about a tedious day, as presented by an all-seeing narrator offering pity as well as commentary.
It's just another day.
McCartney has admitted to showing off his creepy side in songs like Eleanor Rigby and Another Day. He once told Rolling Stone, "I suppose basically it's because I'm a voyeur, observing a woman rather than just being with her thinking, oh, I love that. Drinking a cup of coffee, going to the office with her papers, all that, following her through her day." McCartney elaborated on this in the lyrics 1956 to the present, saying, "Like many writers, I really am a bit of a voyeur. If there's a lit window and there's someone in it, I will watch them. Hands up, guilty. It's a very, very natural thing." Is it though? Tensions had been mounting between John Lennon and Paul McCartney throughout the late 60s, so when the Beatles finally split in 1970, they began airing their grievances pretty much immediately. On Ram, McCartney featured the song Too Many People, a snide and angry polemic that takes aim at self-proclaimed do-gooders who don't really seem to do very much good at all. Any guesses who that might have been about?
You took your lucky break and broke it in two.
Lennon certainly thought that the song had his name on it. Speaking to the music magazine Crawdaddy, he said, "I heard Paul's messages in Ram. Yes, there are, dear reader." So then Lennon wrote How Do You Sleep, a song chock full of not-so-subtle insults towards McCartney, including a song name check of the last song on our list.
And since you've gone, you're just another day.
McCartney would later admit that Too Many People was indeed about Lennon, particularly this key line.
Too many people preaching practices.
He told Playboy, "He'd been doing a lot of preaching and it got up my nose a little bit. This song was written a year or so after the Beatles breakup, at a time when John was firing missiles at me with his songs, and one or two of them were quite cruel. I decided to turn my missiles on him too, but I'm not really that kind of writer, so it was quite veiled."
Band on the run. Band on the run.
On the surface, the title track from Paul McCartney's and Wings' 1973 album is about a prison break juxtaposed with the life of a touring rock band. And yes, it is a statement about law enforcement, but it takes a closer read to truly get what McCartney was really trying to say. In Classic Rock Stories, he explained, "There were a lot of musicians at the time who'd come out of ordinary suburbs in the 60s and 70s and were getting busted. We were being outlawed for pot. It put us on the wrong side of the law, and our argument on the title song was, don't put us on the wrong side, you'll make us into criminals. We're not criminals, we don't want to be." So, to convey that message, he came up with a framing device in the form of a prison breakout. not his own. McCartney himself was arrested no fewer than 6 times between 1960 and 1980, but he never broke out of jail. At least not yet. In 1982, Paul McCartney rolled out his second post-Wings album, the solo LP Tug of War. It was also his first solo effort recorded without songwriting input from his wife, Linda. Left to his own devices, Paul's work on the album is often bittersweet if not somber, particularly on Here Today, in remembrance of John Lennon, who had been assassinated in 1980. Then there's the title track Tug of War, which is an examination of the endless and exhausting toil of adulthood. It's also pretty easy to see from the lyrics that this is also a reflection of McCartney's relationship with Lennon.
With one thing and another, we were trying to outscore each other.
In the lyrics, 1956 to the present, McCartney wrote, "The song was written before John's death in December 1980, but when the album came out in April 1982, people thought it must be about him, that it was about our trying to outdo each other. Of course, I can see how it could fit that interpretation because John and I did try to outscore each other. That was the nature of our competitiveness, and we were both very upfront about it." When Paul McCartney turned 64, like the age from when I'm 64, he commemorated the occasion by putting together a new album, the 2007 LP Memory Almost Full. Here, McCartney looked ahead to his final years, becoming outright morbid on the track The End of the End.
No need to be sad.
As McCartney told the Daily Mail, "I'd read something somebody had written about dying, and I thought, that's brave. It seemed courageous to deal with the subject rather than just shy away from it, so I fancied looking at it as a subject myself." According to McCartney himself, The End of the End is specifically about the Irish wake tradition, which involves holding joyous parties in honor of the deceased, and how he would like something like that in lieu of a somber funeral.
I'd like jokes to be told.
He said, "I have played it to my family, and they find it very moving."
At the end of the end.